The original base. The so-called hidden foot. Karma-vibhaṅga. The analysis of deeds. Part 5. Cross-section of the Borobudur Temple. Locations of the panels. The location of the original case, the so-called hidden foot. The Karma-vibhaṅga panels. The so-called hidden foot of Borobudur refers to the monument's base level, also known as the Karma-vibhaṅga panels, which depict scenes illustrating the law of karma, how actions lead to specific outcomes. This level was intentionally covered shortly after construction, likely as an engineering solution to strengthen the structure and prevent collapse. Fully uncovering the hidden foot today would endanger the temple's stability, as the encasing stonework is essential to reinforcing the base. In 1890, the base was temporarily disassembled, and Casijan Chepas photographed the panels. These photographs are now displayed in Borobudur Museum, located just north of the temple. After restoration, the base was reinstalled, covering the panels again. Today, only a portion of the southeast corner remains visible to visitors. Karma-vibhaṅga. The deeds and their results. The Karma-vibhaṅga panels at Borobudur offer a rich narrative on the law of karma, demonstrating how good and bad actions shape future outcomes. The panels are divided into 5 key sections, each highlighting specific aspects of karma's workings. Here are the 5 key sections. Health and wealth. Rebirth. Permutations. Unwholesome deeds. Wholesome deeds. Part 5 is dedicated to the section, Unwholesome Deeds. Unwholesome deeds. The 4th section presents a standard list of 10 unwholesome deeds, with some depicted on the panels. In early texts, karma was understood as a personal action, with consequences solely for the individual. However, this teaching portrays karma as having broader repercussions beyond the perpetrator. Interestingly, the panels in this sequence do not seem to illustrate the personal outcomes of these actions. From the midpoint of this section, numerous inscriptions provide valuable context for interpreting the panels. Written in Sanskrit and Old Javanese script, these inscriptions typically consist of a single word or compound, offering enough guidance for the sculptors to convey the intended meaning. Their presence also highlights the meticulous planning and direction behind the creation of the panels. 10 unwholesome deeds. There are 10 unwholesome deeds. Which 10? The threefold deeds by way of body, the fourfold deeds by way of speech, the threefold deeds by way of mind. These 10 unwholesome deeds have 10 results externally that increase through development. Killing. With the unwholesome deed of killing living beings, there is the result in the environment that the vitality and strength of the earth disappears. Because of this deed, the result for the perpetrator is a short life. Panel 118. Killing results in the vitality of the earth disappearing. On the right, several individuals are depicted engaging in fishing and hunting, this time targeting birds. Familiar fish traps from the earlier panel reappear, while others are shown using bows and arrows to hunt the avian life. The dire consequence is illustrated on the left. The earth's vitality is depleted, leading to poor and failing crops. A man and woman stand nearby, with the man closely examining the withered seeds, a testament to the environmental devastation caused by their actions. Taking what is not given. With the unwholesome deed of taking what is not given, there is the result in the environment that crop destroyers arise like lightning, parrots, locusts, rats and insects. Because of this deed, the result for the perpetrator is his wealth goes to destruction. Sexual misconduct. With the unwholesome deed of sexual misconduct, there is the result in the environment that clumps of grass and so forth on the earth produce a bad smell. Because of this deed, the result for the perpetrator is that housing that has been established is destroyed. False speech. With the unwholesome deed of false speech, there is the result in the environment that there are diseases of the mouth, teeth and throat, and also a foul smell from the mouth and so on appear. Because of this deed, the result for the perpetrator is that untrue stories about oneself appear. Panel 119. False speech leads to mouth diseases. Two causes are depicted in this scene. On the far right, a couple is engaged in adultery, with the betrayed husband partially sketched at the edge. In the center, a woman is visibly speaking ill of another, whom she points to directly. The consequence shown on the left appears to be afflictions of the mouth, possibly including diseases or foul breath, prompting others to cover their mouths in response. Divisive speech. With the unwholesome deed of divisive speech, there is the result in the environment that on the earth gravel, shards and so on, causing painful feeling appear. Because of this deed, the result for the perpetrator is that life goes to ruin, friends go to ruin, and there is division amongst one's followers. Panel 120. Divisive speech. This panel was only partially completed, with a small section on the right clearly illustrating an instance of wrong speech. The standing man is seen pointing at someone behind him, likely suggesting divisive speech. No corresponding result is depicted, though its nature can be reasonably inferred. It is possible this panel represents another example of false speech, and that the subsequent categories of wrong speech were absent from the text available to the sculptors. Harsh speech. With the unwholesome deed of harsh speech, there is the result in the environment that mud, dust, pollen, winds and rains appear. Because of this deed, the result for the perpetrator is that they experience unpleasant sounds and sights. Frivolous speech. With the unwholesome deed of frivolous speech, there is the result in the environment that mountains, ravines and pits appear. Because of this deed, the result for the perpetrator is that there are words that are hard to accept. Avarice. With the unwholesome deed of avarice, there is the result in the environment that the rice, barley, wheat and other crops appear as chaff, straw and so on. Because of this deed, the result for the perpetrator is that his wealth is desired by others. Ill will. With the unwholesome deed of ill will, there is the result in the environment that the corn that is scattered is barren. Because of this deed, the result for the perpetrator is that adversity is seen. Panel 121. Avarice and ill will. This panel features two inscriptions, one above the middle right, translating to avarice, and another in the middle left, translating to ill will. The panel on the far right remains unfinished, but the consequence of avarice is depicted near the center, a poor crop. Although it may not be immediately apparent that the subsequent scene represents ill will, closer look reveals a seated man pointing an accusatory finger. The resulting consequence of this ill will, however, is not clearly illustrated. Wrong view. With the unwholesome deed of wrong view, there is the result in the environment that bitter and pungent fruits such as neem, bitter gourd and poisonous cucumber appear. With the deed of wrong view, there is the result for the perpetrator that he becomes a nihilist. Annihilationism is also evident in the commentaries of the materialists and others. Panel 122. Wrong views results in bitter fruits. This panel is accompanied by a Sanskrit inscription that translates to wrong view. The depiction on the right makes its connection to this concept somewhat obscure. A wealthy man being served a drink is shown, which might imply the consumption of liquor and by extension, a failure to uphold the precepts, an interpretation that could align with the theme. The resulting consequence is the emergence of bitter fruits and vegetables in the world. While their bitterness is not explicitly conveyed, the expression on the bearded man's face may subtly suggest this. Panel 123. Refraining from wrong deeds results in the vitality of the earth. The inscription translates as wholesome deeds. Although this paragraph is absent from the Sanskrit text available to us, its inclusion seems necessary for maintaining parallelism, suggesting that the version known to the organizers likely contained it. The figure seated prominently on the right appears to be distributing money to the Brahmins, extending their hands before him. At the center, the same individual is depicted teaching, presumably elaborating on the 10 right courses of action. The outcome is depicted as flourishing, abundant crops, a symbol of positive consequences. This concludes the section on unwholesome deeds.